For the Breeders' Cup Turf, about $4 million in prize money. There's about 21 horses that are eligible at this point in time. So I'm going to be going through what I think are the top 10 horses for this race. So number 10 is Bolshoi Ballet out of Ireland, and he has come in 4th place most recently in the Jockey Club Derby Invitational at Belmont Park, and 4th place right before that at Saratoga. But then won the 1st place in the Belmont Derby at Belmont Park. But what I don't like to see here is you have the 1st place in the middle of the summer, and then going back a little bit in performance level. 4th place, though increasing speed from Saratoga to Belmont from August to September, which was pretty good. $750,000 in earnings, but I don't like to see 4th place and 4th place. And then, of course, even before that, you had 7th place at the Kazoo Derby at Epsom over across the Atlantic Ocean. So could be a little better for Bolshoi Ballet. I'm going to say 10th place in this race. Next up at number 9, we have United out of Kentucky. 1st place in the John Henry Turf Championship Stakes at Santa Anita. That was a great 2. And then 4th place in the Del Mar Handicap. That was behind Astronaut at Del Mar. And then before that, 1st place at the Eddie Reed Stakes, also at Del Mar. So we have a horse that is experienced running in Southern California, 2 times at Del Mar, raced pretty decent there, and then a little better at Santa Anita most recently on October 2nd. $360,000 in earnings, 3 for 5 on the year. The earnings are a little bit on the low side compared to some of the other horses in this race for this year, so that means that the level of horses that he has been racing against could be a little better. But 112 E-Speed figure most recently, that's why I would put him in the top half of horses that are eligible for this race. United is going to be my number 9 selection for this one, trained by Richard Mandela and owned by Ellen J. Foxwoods. Number 8 is Walton Street out of Great Britain. $739,000 brought in to 2021, trained by Charles Appleby and owned by Godolphin Stables. 1st place in the Pattison Canadian International Stakes going across the Atlantic Ocean, having raced before at Medan Racecourse in Dubai, and then at Hopgarten in Berlin. So before that, came across the Atlantic going to Woodbine, and we have a 120 E-Speed figure in that Grade 1 turf race. That was pretty impressive over at Woodbine, and then bringing in a lot of money for that one, bringing it up to $739,000 this year. So I like to see the improvement in performance. The one in Dubai was 4th place, but before that he had won 2 races in Dubai, and then in Berlin it was 3rd place. So not too bad at all, and that 1st place most recently is something that I really like to see for this horse. So Walton Street is going to be my 8th selection for this race. Coming in at number 7, we have Astronaut, $274,000 in 2021, so a little bit less than the horses at 8th, 9th, and 10th. But what we do have here is 1st place most recently in the Del Mar Handicap at Del Mar. So you got that experience running at this track. 1st place in that big turf race, Grade 2. That was a pretty big deal. Lots of good horses in that one. So 1st place there, that's something that I really like to see from Astronaut. And then before that, 2nd place at Santa Anita, and 2nd place again at Santa Anita. So 2 for 4, or 2 out of 6 for this year, 2021. Not so much prize money brought in, and 274 in 2021 compared to 285 in Astronaut's career. However, I'm really basing what I like in Astronaut here off of that most recent 1st place at Del Mar. That's going to be something good to look for, 105 E-Speed figure. Next, we have Love out of Ireland, a turf filly. 2nd place most recently at the Moyglare Jules Blandford Stakes, Grade 2 at Curragh. That was September 12th. Before that, 3rd place at the Juddmonte International Stakes, Grade 1 at York. And before that, 3rd place at the King George the 5th and Queen Elizabeth Stakes at Ascot. But then right before that, we have 4 victories in a row, all Grade 1 at Newmarket, Epsom, York, and Ascot, respectively. $875,000 brought in 2021 and $1.8 million brought in her entire career. Trained by Aidan O'Brien and owned by a variety of owners. So Love is done pretty decent this year, not placed in lower than 3rd place in any of her races. Been improving the performance a little bit, go from 3rd place to 2nd place, from York to Curragh. But what I really like to see about Love here is the level of horses that she's been running against on turf. $875,000 in earnings. I like to see that. So Love is going to be my 6th selection for this race. In the 5th spot, we have Gufo out of Kentucky, trained by Christophe Clement and owned by Otterben Stables. $747,000 brought in this year, and $1.1 million in his entire career. Most recently, third place at the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic Stakes at Belmont Park. That was a grade 1. And so a little bit of a decline in the finish there from the one before that. You had first place in the Sword Dancer Stakes at Saratoga on August 28th, 115 e-speed figure in that one. So ran a little bit slower, came down to third place for Belmont Park. But right before that, won a race at Belmont Park, and then came in third place in the Manhattan Stakes, second place in the Man o' War Stakes, third place in the Hollywood Derby, and won first place in the Belmont Derby Invitational in 2020 last year. So you have the 2 first place coming in this summer, followed by a little bit of a decline in performance, but I like to see the earnings are staying pretty consistent, and the finishes, this horse has proven that he can win. So Gufo is number 5 for me. In the 4th spot, we have Yibir out of Great Britain, trained by Charles Appleby and owned by Godolphin Stables. $798,000 brought in 2021, really only raced for the most part in 2021, but most recently won in his first race in the United States, first place at Belmont Park in the Jockey Club Derby Invitational Stakes, with an e-speed figure of 113 coming in for that first race, which was pretty impressive, especially after winning the Bahrain Trophy at Newmarket in the UK, and then the Skybet Greats Valtigir Stakes at also York. And that was on August 18th. So, following up most recent race in the United States at Belmont Park, September 18th, first place there. Back-to-back first place winners, exactly a month apart on August 18th and September 18th. So Yibir is in excellent form, especially for running on turf, and we have a pretty decent earnings in this entire year. So Yibir is going to be my 4th horse for this race. Number 3 is Love's Only You out of Japan. And this one is one that kind of flies under the radar a little bit. We have a mare foaled in 2016, trained by Yoshiro Yahagi and owned by DMM Dream Club. And we have second place at the Sapporo Kinen Grade 2 at Sapporo in Japan, and then first place at the Queen Elizabeth II Cup, and then third place in the Dubai Shima Classic, and first place at the Kyoto Kinen. So we have in the past 4 races, all 2021 for Love's Only You, 2 first place victories, 1 second place, and 1 third place, all in grade 1 races, bringing in $3.1 million this year. That's mostly because of the Dubai race, which is pretty expensive, and also the Queen Elizabeth Cup. But we have some high competition racing in Japan and the UAE, so I think Love's Only You is going to be the 3rd horse in this race. Next up, we have number 2, Tarnawa out of Ireland. Second place at the Qatar Prix de l'Arc Triomphe at Longchamp on grade 1 race. So coming up right below the winner there. And second place in the Irish Champion Stakes grade 1 at Leopardstown. And right before that, won, looks like about 5 races in a row, and ran at Keeneland last year in the Breeders' Cup Turf. So this exact same race, grade 1, won that race. Came in first place in that one with an e-speed figure of 126. So Tarnawa is experienced running in this exact same race. Not at the same track, of course, but the exact same race against the exact same type of horses that are going to be running in this one. So that is why Tarnawa is my 2nd selection, though there is one other horse in this race that I think is probably going to beat this mare out of Ireland because of his record. However, $1.5 million in 2021 is pretty solid in only 3 races. So Tarnawa is number 2 for me. Finally, number 1, Domestic Spending out of Great Britain. $911,000 brought in 2021, which is much lower than the horses that I previously mentioned, but the level that this horse has been racing at is absolutely phenomenal. We have 2 first place to kick off Domestic Spending's career, dropped down to 3rd place in the National Museum of Racing Hall of Fame Stakes at Saratoga, but then battled back to win 4 races in a row, going from Saratoga to the Hollywood Derby at Del Mar, so has raced at this track before, is experienced with that. Then the Old Forester Bourbon Turf Classic Stakes on Kentucky Derby Day at Churchill Downs, and then the Manhattan Stakes first place with 119 e-speed figure, the highest in his career at Belmont Park, and then coming in second place at the Mr. D Stakes at Arlington Park in Chicago on August 14th. So we have a little bit of a decline there, coming in second place at the Mr. D Stakes, but was a heavy favorite and won those 4 races in a row with some pretty solid earnings to speak for his entire career and for 2021. So Domestic Spending is my pick to win the Breeders' Cup Turf race.